Joining me now is Congresswoman Susan DelBene of Washington State, a Democrat and chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Congresswoman, let's start with the Epstein story. In just the past 48 hours, the Wall Street Journal has published a description of a lewd birthday message allegedly drawn by Trump for Epstein in 2003. The president has denied writing the letter and is suing the paper and its owner, Rupert Murdoch, for $10 billion. Trump has also instructed his attorney general, Pam Bondi, to request that a federal judge release pertinent grand jury testimony. NBC News is reporting that Trump is displeased with Bondi's handling of the so-called Epstein files, feeling that he's taking the heat for her missteps. Should Congress weigh in and demand transparency over this growing scandal?
Well, the American people deserve transparency, and this is kind of goes in a trend we've seen from the president and from Republicans. He made a promise to be transparent. He's broken that promise. The American people deserve to know more. And so we're going to continue to push. It's important that the president lives up to his word, but it's also important that the American people have transparency.
Now the Epstein scandal is playing out at the same time there are concerning revelations about the president's health. This week, the White House admitted Trump is suffering from insufficient blood flow in the veins of his legs after photos of his swollen ankles sparked speculation online. The president's doctors say the condition is benign and common in older people. Still, do Americans deserve to know more about the president's condition, especially when House Republicans are still holding hearings about former President Biden's health and suggesting there may have been some type of cover-up there?
Well, I think it's always important, and we've seen over and over how critical it is that people have information about the president's health. So that is important. I think this whole theme of making sure that there's transparency, that the administration is being honest with the American people is critically important. It comes up when we talk about the Epstein files. It comes up in making sure that we know the status of the president. It comes up in terms of making sure that we know what's happening with resources that are supposed to be going to our communities, that we know what's happening in the administration overall, transparency, making sure that promises that have been made are kept. And what we've seen over and over from this administration and from Republicans is a big broken promise. And the American people are outraged, and you're hearing that across the country.
Now, just days after passing Trump's massive spending bill that cuts taxes for the wealthy while slashing social spending, Congress this week added insult to injury, passing a rescissions package, cutting another $7 billion in previously approved funding for foreign aid and public broadcasting. Can you talk about the impact of doing away with all these programs that benefit ordinary Americans, even as they continue to rack up a massive debt?
Well, this is about cutting programs that give important emergency information, important news to people across the country, especially in our rural communities, making sure that people have emergency alerts. They're slashing that program. That's public broadcasting, public radio, play an incredible role there. They're slashing that. I know how important it's been to my community, our rural communities, but they're taking away funding that was approved in a bipartisan way.
Which includes NPR.
NPR, public radio.
Public radio.
Just important programs that have helped people across the country. And Republicans continue to give away the important power that Congress has to allocate dollars. That is our role as members of Congress, to make sure that we are funding programs. They continue to do President Trump's bidding. If he says just kind of take money away from programs, they say yes. There was a lack of information even in this package of exactly where some of these dollars were coming from. And Republicans didn't care. They just are blindly loyal to Donald Trump.
Even though it hurts some of their constituents.
They haven't stood up for their constituents. This big, ugly bill taking away health care from millions of people across the country. Republicans like David Valadao in California has one of the biggest Medicaid populations in the country. he voted to gut Medicaid, which goes right against his
closing hospitals in many of the
rural
red
communities.
areas. But many Democratic voters are understandably upset over Trump administration's policies, and they want to see Democrats do more to fight back. We're seeing polling where Democrats are being low in the polls. New polling from CNN shows Democrats have some of the lowest favorable ratings in decades, and new fundraising numbers show that your Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee lagging behind your Republican counterpart in fundraising last month. As chair of the DCCC, how do you win back these voters? What do you say that brings them back?
Well, first of all, when we have great candidates, and we've recruited great candidates across the country, when we recruit great candidates who talk about the issues that matter to their communities, they win. And we picked up 2 seats last cycle in the House of Representatives. We have 14 Democrats who won in districts that Donald Trump also won in. And why did we overperform there? Because we had great candidates who were independent-minded, talking about the needs of their communities, and who came to Washington, D.C. to get things done for their communities. That's how we win elections. And we only need 3 more seats to take back the House. When we recruit great candidates who are going to be talking about the issues, we win. We know that happened even in a tough cycle last time. We know that's true right now. And Republicans have broken promises over and over to the American people. They're seeing that, and we're going to hold them accountable for that.
Now, staying on that topic, this week, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries urged Texas Democrats to fight back against Republicans' plan to boost the number of seats they pick up in next year's midterms through redistricting. The president's backed the plan, saying he might expand it to other states. In response, California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom says he'll do the same if Texas proceeds. What are the stakes for Democrats, and for that matter, the nation, if Republicans get their way in Texas?
Well, Republicans are running scared. That's why they realize they can't win just by talking about their policies, because their policies are terrible. So they're trying to rig the system. They're trying to change the maps. And Donald Trump basically ordered folks in Texas to try to change the maps. But they should be careful what they wish for. When they move those maps around, they're going to make more Republicans vulnerable too. And we're going to compete in every single one of those districts. Republicans are going to lose their jobs if this is the path that they go down.
And looking at their Texas plans, they're targeting certain black members of Congress in Texas, I might add. Thank you for coming in and being with us, Congresswoman Susan DelBene.